Hey YouTube, how you guys doing? My name is Kyle, you know me as Dragonmar, and welcome to a new video. Today guys, we're going to be going over one tip for every rank. Now these tips are coming from the VOD reviews that I do, as you guys know I've done a lot of them for every rank now. I want to try to boil things down to what do I think I talk about the most with each rank, and then make a video out of that. And that's exactly what I've done here. Just understand that for some of you in these ranks, you need to work on other things, but this is just what I have found in my findings so far. So, take it with a grain of salt, but I do think a lot of this is very, very good advice. Now, if you guys do enjoy these videos, hey, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and of course, tap that bell. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been showing up to the streams. We do stream daily now, starting at 12 p.m. Eastern. So when this video goes up, I'll also be live. Love for you guys to come check me out. I am about to rank up, finally. We won't say where I'm at right now. It's a little embarrassing. I'm a little sad. But hey, let's get started with the video. All right, coming in with Iron. Iron, obviously the lowest rank in the game, and because of this, you find a wide variety of players in Iron. You're going to find people who have never touched an FPS before, to people who have never played a video game before, to people whose main game is League of Legends, which you see a lot. Now, that's not a bad thing. There's a lot of room for growth there, and at this rank, one thing I like to say to people is that you have to focus on your fundamentals. And what I mean by this is that a lot of people look for steps to quickly succeed, or to just kind of skip past that basic intro stuff, the part of the game where you suck essentially, and like, how can I be super good really quick? And the truth is, if you're coming in with almost no background of these type of games, it's almost impossible. So the fundamentals is where you want to start, and there's a few things. You want to work on movement, you want to work on your aim, on the economy side of the game, and on teamwork. Right, these are the four, I think, fundamentals. Obviously, there's a few more you could add in there, but everything kind of loosely fits into this, right? It's a team game, it's a first-person shooter, and it has an economy. All of those things put together, those are the fundamentals. And essentially what I'm saying in this tip here is that the best advice I can give you is to just go play a ton of games. You have to play a ton of games when you're a low rank, because you have to get a feel for the game and a better understanding of how the game actually works and how you can function inside of this type of game, because you don't have a lot of experience to base that off of, right? I have thousands of hours in Counter-Strike and hundreds of hours in Overwatch at high level play to base my own takes on, my own experience in game, and to help develop strategies for myself in Valorant, because it's so similar to those games. You guys don't have that in Iron, so you have to get that experience under your belt first. That's why I say focus on the fundamentals. You are going to suck in the beginning, and that's okay. Now we move on to Bronze. Bronze is an interesting rank because I feel like there are some players in Bronze who got out of Iron probably super quick, and then they just never kept going up. And I think that one thing I say to Bronze players a lot is that you guys need to find agents that fit your playstyle and that fit you, just as a player and as a person, right? It's very, very important in this game to play agents that complement the way you like to play the game. This is a piece of advice I give to a lot of people at all ranks, but I feel like when you're in Bronze, this is a great time to figure this type of stuff out. And then of course, as you progress through the game, you can always change things up later. So right now for me, you guys know I started with Brimstone. I realized his playstyle didn't fit me anymore. I switched to Omen, and now I've actually moved over to a little bit of Reyna and Phoenix as well as Omen, because sometimes I want to get a little more aggro, I want to play more aggressive, and I want to play a duelist. But for lower ranked players, it's really important that you're not accidentally countering your own playstyle, but with the agent you play. If you're a super aggressive player, there's no point playing Killjoy or Cypher, as they are Sentinels, and their kits are not based around that style of play. If you want to push every round, you're much better off playing Reyna or Phoenix, or even Jet if you want to, even Raze, honestly, as those agents all have abilities that help them push, that can clear spots out, have movement abilities, have flashes, all that kind of stuff, right? Very, very important early on to figure out, hey, what's my playstyle? What do I like to do? Am I an aggressive person? Am I passive? Do I like helping my team and as a support player? Do I like being the first one in? And then match that up with the agent that fits your playstyle, or the few agents that fit that playstyle. You never, ever, ever want to be limiting yourself and your own creativity in your own way you play with your agent choice. So really think hard about what you're playing. It might seriously be holding you back. Okay, now we have to talk about Silver. Silver is one of the ranks that I review the most, I think, on stream. And as such, I have noticed something with silver players, and that is that they run and shoot all the time. That's why this tip is about counter strafing. So counter strafing, obviously, as you guys know by now, when you run right with the D button, you would counter strafe by pressing A, and that immediately stops your movement. Or you're running left with the A button, press D, immediately stops your movement. Now, the problem here is that I see in silver players, whenever they're turning corners in particular, this is a huge problem. Whenever they're turning a corner where there might be an enemy, they end up taking like 3 or 4 steps while shooting, throwing off their accuracy completely, and then they just get into a spray battle because neither player is, very accurate. This is a huge problem because this is something that will persist on into the higher ranks. The higher you go, the more accurate you have to be because the better the aim the enemy team will have. You cannot be running around corners spraying. And you could kind of get away with it a lot with a Spectre, but once you start getting to the higher ranks where you have to buy rifles, you have to have a Vandal or a Phantom, it just stops working. So very, very important for silver players in particular, I'm calling you guys out here, to make sure that when you start shooting, you are completely stopped movement-wise. Very, very important. Gold players. Gold, probably the most common rank in the game, I believe. It's average, people would say. It's right in the middle. Pretty decent rank to be at. If you're in gold, that means you have a pretty darn good understanding of the game. Probably have some really good fundamentals. Some pretty good aim as well on top of that. And, you're probably looking to climb higher, right? No one wants to be stuck in gold forever. You want to climb to plat, get even higher, hopefully. And unfortunately, there is something that I see in gold a lot, which is a little surprising, I think, or maybe to some of you guys not surprising at all. And that is way too much aggression. Way too much aggression. So my tip here is actually to play more passively, to play more passive role, play more defensively, especially on defense. Very, very important here. Now, there are a few reasons why. First of all, in gold, if you play too aggressive in gold, what ends up happening is that because you don't quite have those aim skills that maybe the higher ranked players have, so they can get away with the super aggressive plays, you end up dying a lot. And not do you end up dying a lot, you end up dying without any trades or without anybody being near you, because a lot of the times you're playing alone. Now, this is a really big problem because you're essentially putting yourself and your team into a losing situation round after round. If you're one of the players who finds yourself dying early and often without ever getting the first kill, you really should reconsider your role and how you play, because you might accidentally be throwing games away without even realizing it, just because you're being too aggressive. Now, passive play is something that I've really started enjoying doing. You guys know I talk about it a lot. One of the best examples I can give is how I started to play U-Haul. So U-Haul on bind is right over by the teleporter, right next to the truck, right? Also called lamps, I believe. What I like to do is, instead of playing up in the corner or actually towards the short part of bind by the teleporter, I'll play inside U-Haul. And I'll play sort of a passive off angle. And this angle will throw off enemies, and it's so passive that they don't actually think to clear it, because I'm not in the corner necessarily. I'm kind of in the middle between the corner and the other wall. So thinking of different spots you can play in to be more passive. So instead of constantly peeking angles, just play passive. And what ends up happening is you start letting the enemies walk into your crosshair, walk into your aim, walk into your line of fire, and then you just blow them away. Now, this doesn't always work, especially if you get flashed, but if you can learn to play more passive in gold, it really, really benefits you later on. There are some unbelievable timing plays I've made on stream recently. Just noting one where I let a Phoenix ult walk past me, and then I got a 2k off of it, killed the ult for a 3k, and finished the game finished around with a 4k, right? There are ways you can play passive. You don't have to be so aggressive. And what's really important is that helps you so much later on. Once you get into plat, once you get into diamond, really, really important to refine your play style, and you can really start that here in gold by learning to play more passively. Okay, plat, it's time to talk to you guys. Now, platinum is a rank where players actually are pretty skilled. Once you're in plat, you're going to run into some people that have aim that could probably rival players in Immortal. And because of this, you find yourself in a lot of situations where you have to rely on, you guessed it, your team. This is a team game, guys. Remember that. Looking at you, duelists, jets. Yep, you. So as I was saying, very, very important here that you learn how to trade. So trading, obviously, is something I've talked about a lot. I even made a video on it, I believe, and it's something I preach. And the reason I talk about trading so much is because it's one of the few things in this game that just comes directly and translates directly from all the other games I've played. Whether it's Overwatch, Counter-Strike, it doesn't matter. Like, you have to trade, you have to go for those 1-for-1s, because if you don't, guess what? You're constantly putting your team in a losing spot, a losing position where they're down a player. So let's talk about trading. Why is it so important for plats? So important for plats because aim starts to matter here a lot. You're going to run into people with good aim. How do you counter people with good aim? With more than one player attacking them at once. Why? Because you can't shoot 2 spots with the same bullet unless you guys line up. Don't line up. Had that happen recently. Very sad. Now, what I was saying is that trading is essentially you and a teammate are in such close proximity that when the first player dies, you are able to trade out or get the refrag, or to trade out that death with a death on the enemy team by killing the player who killed them. The only way you can do this is with good positioning. So at this point in the game in Plat, you should have pretty good positioning, because you have to be close enough to your teammate to help them, but not too close that you're getting in each other's way or potentially lining up for a collateral. Now, this is really, really important because trading becomes a necessity once you hit Diamond and once you're in Immortal, because there is just no way you can win certain rounds against players at these certain ranks with just your own aim alone. You have to rely on a teammate to help you as well, because you're going to run into players who are just gods, and you have to 2v1 them to take them out. That's why it's so frustrating to see a team lose, a 2v1 or a 3v1 situation where every person took a 1v1 fight with this player. Well, imagine if all 3 of you or both of you push them at the exact same time. How are they going to shoot 2 spots at once? They're not. That's why trading is so important. This is something that you are going to see a lot of people talk about in the higher ranks. So it's very important once you hit Plat that you have this skill down. Very, very easy to pick up on once you start actively thinking about it. It's all about movement is the best tip I can give here. It's all about your movement. Now we're on to Diamond. If you guys have been watching my stream, you know we've had our journey in Diamond recently, which finally is coming to an end. I'm about 1 or 2 games off Immortal. Thankfully, we spent a little longer. Well, we only spent a few days in Diamond, but it was a lot of fun. And there was one thing I realized, one thing I noticed about offense or about attack. And what I realized is that we're not very good at executing sites. And I think there's a lot of reasons for this, but a few things I noticed is, or actually I should say the tip I want to talk about here is how to execute sites better, because you have to get better at executing once you get into Immortal, because it's so important to get those rounds on attack, as that generally is the time when you really can start steamrolling and you really can rack up those rounds when you have a super strong attack side. Now, how do you do this? First and foremost, you have to start with utility. You have to use your abilities better. This means your timing has to be impeccable. Your smoke should be landing as your teammates are ready to enter sites. Your flashes should actually serve a purpose, and you should follow your flashes out. You should not rely on your teammates to go out with your flashes. You're the ones that can time those. You have to be the one focusing on your flashes. Now, another thing I want to talk about is the enemy utility. Have you ever noticed that your pushes are just getting stuffed by smokes and slows and nades and mollies? Well, that's because you're not baiting out enough utility. So remember, we have to play default sometimes too. We have to bait out that utility. We can't just telegraph our movements. Otherwise, the enemy team is going to be too prepared. So you got your utility perfectly used. You've used up some of theirs. Now you're attacking in. What's next? Well, you have to be following each other in. There should never be just one person, especially if there's a smoke down in front of you, you have to go through a smoke. You should always have 2 people exiting the smoke at once. There should never be a time when you're not going together, because you have to trade. You have to refrag. You cannot let that first person die, because as soon as they die, that player can reset their focus on your push again and probably get another one of you as you come through the smoke. So if you have to go through a smoke, you have to play together. Super, super important. Another thing here for Diamonds when it comes to executing is that you guys have to hold angles for your teammates as they're clearing. if your teammates are clearing close angles and there's another spot that potentially they could get peeked from, you guys have to hold that for them. You can't just let that be open and just kind of run into sight, you know, so lackadaisically, because you're just gonna get shot and your teammates are gonna get shot too, because you're not covering them. Very, very important here that when your team is entering a site together, you guys are covering angles for your teammates until they are 100% clear. If there is a possibility that an enemy could be there, you have to be holding it. You cannot leave it open unless you have a smoke available to smoke it. And finally, I just wanted to say why this is so important. Part of the problem here, and part of the thing I've noticed the most, is that I do not feel like on attack, people really are playing their roles quite the way I would want them to in my games. I've got a lot of sentinels who I feel like are for some reason in front of me, even when I'm on a duelist, and I'm like, chill out, like, hold on a second here, let me go in. Or I feel like sometimes my players with smokes aren't actually smoking the correct spots. Remember, you're trying to cut off sight lines. You're trying to give us the easiest path into a site. And this is just something I noticed a lot recently in Diamond. I'm sure this happens at other ranks too. But I just wanted to bring this up because I feel like it's so important once you hit these higher ranks, this higher tier of gameplay, that you really are focusing on the way you play with your team. And you start honing those skills then if you ever want to reach the tippity top up there in Immortal Plus. And finally, we have Immortal Plus. I'm not even going to bother trying to give advice to Radiance. You guys would just laugh at me. Now, what would I say to Immortals? Well, the first thing I would say is that at this point in the game, you are so good at the game. You are better than 99% of the player base. So what I really have to say here is you probably have great aim. You know, that's just how it is. You probably have pretty good positioning, good actual mechanics, good understanding of the game, good, you know, map knowledge, awareness, game sense, all that kind of stuff, right? But there is something I think that can always be improved upon. That's kind of why I've saved it until last, and that's teamwork. That's how to play with the team. And it's more than just playing with the team. It's also about how to talk with your team, how to communicate, how to be a human being and not a complete jerk. I think that helps a lot, goes a long way. It's about how to be nice to people as well, but also about how to play around other players. Teamwork is one of the most important parts of a game like Valorant, especially because in Valorant in particular, there are abilities, which means every single agent brings something somewhat unique to the team. So it's a lot more difficult to just kind of play this game as a solo player when you are not going to have the same capabilities as everyone on the other team. You might be playing Brimstone when the enemy team has an Omen. Well, guess what? The Omen can get on top of boxes and on top of objects. You cannot. That is something you have to keep in mind, that there are advantages and disadvantages to every agent in the game. So the way you play has to be based around not just what you have, but what your team has available in terms of utility and what they bring to the table with those abilities. Because of that, you often see a lot of people in Immortal playing very, very, how do we say this? Selfishly. And I think this is a huge problem and something that can definitely be worked on. Because once you hit this rank, you're only gonna hit Radiant playing solo like that if you're a god. And not everybody at that rank is a god. Seriously, there are some people who seriously just grind there and just good players. You know, not everyone is an aim god like tens or something. So how do you get higher? With teamwork. How you learning how to work with a team, learning how to play together, learning your role, and just refining that. And focusing so much on trades and holding passive angles and how to clear and just how to play around a team in general is the only advice I can give to Immortals, because at that point you got everything down. I think the last piece of that puzzle is just refining your teamwork. And guys, that's going to do it for the video. If you did enjoy, hey, hit that like button and subscribe for more, and maybe come check me out live. I'm live every day at 12 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.